honored to have you all here. I will introduce, or I'll have my co-presenters introduce themselves in just a little while, but I wanted to welcome you to this series called Study Abroad and Transfer Students. We're going to spend the next hour kind of focusing on transfer students. I was a transfer student myself, so I definitely feel kinship to this community and this population. This is a part of a larger series. If you're not aware, it's called Exploring Your Identity Abroad series. And it's being hosted by all of the UC campuses. And the presenters you're going to meet tonight, including myself, are all representatives from UC San Diego. And so for those of you who are coming in from other UC campuses, welcome. I know it's been quite a crazy couple of weeks weather-wise for us here in the state. Hopefully you're able to dry out a bit. Looking forward to having a conversation with you all. And at the bottom, if you want to take a quick screen grab or picture, there's a URL of the rest of the sessions that the series is going to be hosting for the rest of this year up through, I believe, June. There's a number of sessions that are going to be following ours. So without further ado, I would like the panel to kind of introduce ourselves, and then we can kind of get started. We're definitely hoping that this can be somewhat of a conversation, or to be able to empower you, the viewer, to ask questions of us. And if something comes in your mind, feel free to chat, throw something in the chat. We'll try to answer it and address it as kind of we're going through this next hour. So definitely welcome. You're welcome to do that. So to get us started, there's 4 of us today from UC San Diego. I'll go first, then I'll popcorn around. Again, my name is Jay Meinert. I use he, him pronouns. I've been the Director of Outreach and Academic Engagement for the Study Abroad office here at UC San Diego for just marked my 10th year. I've been here for a minute, so yay! Been here for what seems like yesterday. I just got here, so excited to talk to you as transfer students, share my own experience as a transfer student studying abroad, and all of that good stuff. So welcome. Who would like to go next? Jackie?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Jackie Dewar. I am the program manager for Transfer Student Success, which is the home of the Triton Transfer Hub at UC San Diego. So I have the joy of working with transfer students all day, every day. I am a firm believer in study abroad opportunities for transfer students. I want you to know that transfer students can study abroad. And so I'm really glad you're here today. And so I'll popcorn it over, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, if I didn't say that already. I will popcorn it over to Eduardo.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Eduardo McGowan. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a financial aid counselor, specifically for study abroad here at UC San Diego. And I, too, was a transfer student from UC San Diego. So I'm really excited to kind of dive in a little bit into the tips and just things to note regarding financial aid and study abroad.
Chiemi.
Hey, my name is Chiemi. I am a transfer student. I'm currently double majoring in Japanese studies and linguistics. I transferred from City College in San Francisco in fall of 2020, and I've been working as a study abroad global educator since fall 2021. So I'm actually a 3rd-year transfer student. And it's nice to meet you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, 3, for introducing yourselves. Man, UC San Diego, we're lucky. We're lucky to have Eduardo in the office, kind of an embedded financial aid guy, definitely helpful. And I don't know if all the other campuses have a similar role as yours, Jackie, but definitely when back in the day, I did not have a transfer hub or anything set for my transferness. So definitely it's exciting to see these resources. All right, well, why don't we jump in? And Jackie, did you want to take a stab at this?
Sure, yeah, I'll get started, and Jay, feel free to fill in my blanks here.
Okay.
So y'all, when it comes to studying abroad, first and foremost, it's really helpful for you to take a moment and think about what matters to you. What do you want out of a program, right? You got to go through prioritization, goal setting, really think what matters to you. whether it's ranking, whatever it might be. So if we could go back. Oh, thank you so much. It's okay. It's all good. And then y'all, I should say too, if you have questions, feel free to put things in the chat as we go, or if things are standing out to you as something that's really, that is important to you, that resonates with you, you can use the reactions as we go, whatever you need. So think about what matters to you, right? Here are some examples of considerations when it comes to a program. Are you thinking about finding an opportunity that also includes an internship and research? Maybe the program has service learning or field study. Maybe you want to volunteer, right? So these are some different opportunities within programs you can look into. Maybe you want to find a program that fully utilizes your financial aid. Money talks, right? Where does this fit into your prioritization for a program? Maybe you want to make sure that you can maximize a unique opportunity that you can't get at your school. For example, I think about studying abroad in Australia, and maybe they have a really great maritime program, right? And so are there certain courses for your major that are not offered at your home institution that might be able to apply to what you're trying to do, right? So how does that fit into your goals? Your academic calendar, I mean, really, your advisors, we're going to talk later about advising, but maybe when you're here, there are certain courses that you have to take at your institution during a specific quarter or semester, right? You need to be here fall semester, fall quarter, right? So how does that fit into your prioritization, right? And then finally, how does this opportunity fit into your career and professional plans? So these are just some things for you to think about and to consider prioritizing, organizing. There's one of the things you're going to hear about is how many programs there are out there. So knowing what matters to you is a really good start. So I'm going to pause. I said a lot of things. Jay, is there anything you want to add to this?
No, I thank you. I think you definitely encapsulated it. When we were thinking about kind of finding the right program, like you said, it's all about, kind of sitting down, writing down what's important to you, what you want to accomplish, what might challenge you, what might be a barrier, whether it's classes, I got to stay here for this class, or, I have to take a prereq and before I do it. So just having a clear eye about kind of what it is that you're getting yourself into with regards to planning for study abroad, I think is important. And as Jackie said, we're going to talk a lot about advising and how you can kind of get to that place in terms of doing your research, finding the right program, because for all of us at all the UC campuses, we now have a ton of options. Back in the day, we may not have had that many options, but now you can do EAP, you can do faculty-led, you could do third party, you could do global, all kinds of stuff. And so sometimes it's hard to narrow it down. So some of these issues might help you start to put a filter or a lens on your choices. Definitely. Get advised. That is the undercurrent. I mean, if you're leaving in with any kind of messaging today, it's definitely the importance of using your resources. Again, definitely appreciate the fact that Jackie's on the call, that Eduardo's on the call, because these are the types of folks that can kind of be in your corner when it comes to, planning for your study abroad and all of that. The 1, 2, 3 that you see in this screen involves, it's not a linear, sometimes it's bouncing back and forth and around, right? But we kind of like to start you off with visiting your local study abroad office on your campus. You can start to research programs. You can start to figure out, okay, what's the application process like? What's the pre-departure process like? The life cycle of your study abroad experience, as it will. And then your study abroad advisors are likely going to send you to research a program with certain courses, and then you're going to need to talk about those courses with your academic advisors. So planning out your courses, figuring out the academic requirements, petitioning your courses upon return if that's required. All of that stuff is important. At some point, you're going to apply to a program. And then once you apply, then the study abroad program advisors take over. I don't know, I'd be willing to bet that several of you on the call are probably going to maybe do EAP, which is our UCY program. When we nominate students or accept students to a program down here in San Diego, once we do that, we send your file on up to Goleta or Santa Barbara, and they take over and they'll do a lot of the specifics with regards to the pre-departure. So it's really a team effort. You have to be on top of things. You have to be, answering your emails and all of that good stuff, and just being aware of deadlines and everything else. But all of these advisors are here to help you kind of guide your process, guide your way. So what should you talk about when it comes to academic advising? And, it really depends on your situation. You want to think about what's important to you. What is happening in your life that you need to raise with these folks, with these advisors to help you figure it out. When it comes to academic advising, a lot of some of the popular questions that I think that students should remember to ask is, one, are there any classes that I need to take here on campus? The big challenge for transfers is the finite time, right? We got 2 years versus 4 years. So everything needs to be real strategic, and you don't want to go abroad if you need to be here to take a class. So knowing that is important. And as on this other flip of that coin, what kind of classes can you take abroad, in terms of planning out your schedule or rearranging courses if you can, that kind of thing. Know if you know about any prereqs courses that you might have to take. How might study abroad impact your need to take a prerequisite? Look at any of your requirements that you might be able to fulfill abroad. Here at UC San Diego, I work closely with engineering students, and I know a lot of those students are looking for technical electives or electives, breadth electives to take abroad, because those are easier to find than, I've got to find an exact fluid dynamics course and blah, blah, blah. So if you can find breadth and depth of requirements to take abroad, that might be a little bit easier for you in terms of finding courses. And then finally, and I love this last point, can I study abroad during my final term? How might that impact graduation? Personal anecdote, I myself was in this boat. I wasn't going to study abroad. When I transferred, I lost something like 9 credits in the transfer process, and I was salty. I just wanted to get done, right? I just wanted to get out. But my faculty mentor definitely told me, he's like, Jay, you got to study abroad. I mean, they're in college. That's what you should do. So he convinced me. I actually studied abroad my very last, it was the summer after I walked. It was the summer after my commencement. And so sometimes students can do that, where they'll, finish everything out. They might have a couple courses left that you might be able to parlay that into some kind of study abroad experience. So just some example questions to ask. If you can think of other questions that are pertinent to your situation, feel free, definitely want to write those down, and then feel free to ask your advisors about that. Timing. I think that's the main theme with transfer students. Like I said, when I got to school, when I transferred in, I was just focused on getting out, because I did lose some credits. I didn't want to waste any more money. I kind of had that mindset. So as soon as you hit the ground, and I know we're a little late because you're already matriculated into your schools and your programs, but start planning early as you can. It's never too early just to start figuring out the website, navigating around the resources, starting to really think seriously about it, meeting with your academic advisor. Summer on our campus, and I'm probably guessing at some of your other campuses, summer is the most popular time nowadays to go abroad, right? The days of spending a whole year in France, are gone, right? For most people, not for all students, but for most, it's summer, and that's kind of where we're seeing the trend. So if you want a summer option, that might be something that you might want to consider, especially if your program is tight and if you don't have a lot of wiggle room during the year in terms of your academic load. And I already talked about studying abroad at the end of your academic journey, if that's the case. But I also wanted to add another point, and this is important. Sometimes students come in our office and they're freaked out. They're like, yeah, I'm almost done and I wanted to study abroad and I'll never get abroad if I don't do this by the time I graduate. I just am here to say that life continues after you graduate. Obviously, it would be great if you could study abroad as a student, as an undergrad, but if you don't make it in time, there are a couple couple options post-graduation that students can fulfill and pursue. Fulbright is one where you can teach English or do research before you hit grad school. You know, you can do a year in Fulbright. You can teach English in Japan through the JET program. I did Peace Corps myself after graduation, so I did 2 years living abroad. Germany has the Germany Academic Exchange, or DAAD, has some options for STEM majors. So there's some options, not a lot, but there's some things to think about in case you find yourself at an impasse with regards to making study abroad work within the limited amount of time you have at your respective UC. If you run out of time, consider some of these options after school, and it might give you a good breather, especially if you're intending on maybe going on to grad school. You know, I appreciated 2 years away from books, you know, before I went and returned to my graduate program. So some food for thought for you as you're thinking this through. Eduardo.
All right, thank you, Jay. So just shifting to financial aid. So as you're looking for a program, what funding opportunities are available? Many of you are probably thinking, can I afford this study abroad program, or does my financial aid apply to this program? So first, I wanted to start off in explaining what type of aid is actually available. So one way to look at it is in 2 different sections. So the first one is gift aid, or financial aid that you don't have to return back. And this includes the Pell Grant, which is a federal grant, the Cal Grant, a state grant, institutional grant. This depends on which UC you're at. If they have different regulations for each one. My recommendation is to ask your financial aid counselor to see if it applies to a program you're interested in. Scholarships. So look into your UC scholarships, study abroad office scholarships, if they have any. Also, not only those, but you can also look at outside scholarships that are specifically for study abroad as well. And then finally, there's veterans benefits as well. To find out more which benefits, because there are a lot of veterans benefits, please reach out to your certifying official at your campus, right? They'll be able to tell you exactly, if you tell them the program that you're interested in, they'll be able to tell you if it actually applies. Next, we have loans. So the first is a subsidized loan, which is a federal loan. And this is the most popular loan in terms of studying abroad, just because no interest accrues while you're enrolled in at least half time, which most study abroad programs are at least half time. Next, we have the unsubsidized loan, which is also federal. Also, the Parent Plus loan for independents, or for dependent students, which is federal as well. This does require a credit check, but if a parent is denied, you can request an additional unsubsidized loan. And finally, there's the option of outside private loans as well. All right, so tips and considerations. So there are many tips and considerations I can give regarding financial aid when you're looking for a study abroad program, but I feel like this is a good start, this list here. So the first one is, what financial aid are you currently receiving, right? What kinds of grants or loans are you eligible for currently in your award letter? And if you're thinking to study abroad the following academic year, looking at your award letter when it releases in the summer for that following academic year, and see what type of financial aid you qualify for. Next, what is the cost breakdown of your program abroad? So how much is it actually going to cost to go abroad, right? And within that overall cost of attendance for your program abroad, what are those mandatory costs within that budget? So similar to attending your UC, right? You have your UC tuition and fees that are mandatory, but everything else really depends on the lifestyle you live. So the cost of attendance at a UC could be $30,000, right? But tuition could be $13,000, right? So there's this big difference between those mandatory costs and out-of-pocket costs or other costs. So really looking at those mandatory costs is very important. What outside resources are available to you? So I did mention scholarships. So not only your campus scholarships, but outside scholarships as well. Do you have family and friends who are there to support you as well while you're studying abroad? And then this is also an important one. Is your program that you're considering a semester or quarter program? I know that not all UCs are quarter system programs. Here at UCSD, we are a quarter system school, right? So is it a semester or quarter program, the study abroad program you're interested in, and does it match with your UC, right? If it matches, it might be a smooth transition when it comes to financial aid, but if it doesn't match, feel free to make sure to ask your financial aid counselor how it transfers, because it might transfer a little bit differently if you're at a quarter system and considering a semester program or vice versa. And finally, financial aid can vary very differently depending on the type of program and when you go. So the type of program, many of you are probably consider UCAP, but there's other programs out there, right? And financial aid works differently for each of those programs. And also when you go, right? So are you considering going for a whole year, during the academic year, or during the summer? One thing to keep in consideration is that summer financial aid works very differently than going through the academic year. All right, next slide. All right, so what's next? So you're already researching programs. Once you narrow down your search, right? The first step, what I would recommend is to meet with a study abroad advisor to find more information about that for those programs you're interested in, kind of really narrow down your search to one or two, right? And to see if it's the best fit for you. Next is to review that program budget, that cost of attendance and those mandatory fees that I mentioned in the last slide. So what is it going to cost total, but what are the actual mandatory costs that are going to be due when you start your program abroad? Next, check your award letter and see what type of aid you were offered, right? So when you're meeting with a financial aid counselor or a study abroad advisor, you already know what aid you have, and they'll be able to let you know what actually transfers to your study abroad program of interest. And finally, the last step is contact your campus financial aid study abroad counselor if you have one, or just a financial aid counselor in general. They'll be able to help you out to see, hopefully they can give you an estimate, more of a realistic, bigger picture of if you'll be fully covered for study abroad, or if you'll have to pay anything out of pocket. And also I wanted to throw this out there for UCAP, for those who are considering on going for UCAP in the summer and the fall. The scholarship application is now open for UCEAP. For those who are considering studying in the summer, the application closes on February 15th. And then those who are considering of going in the fall, the application closes on March 15th.
All right, thank you. And before I give it over to Jackie, who can maybe speak to, how can transfer students become as competitive as possible? Scholarships is a great tool. As you were speaking, Eduardo, it just kind of reaffirmed for me the importance of, again, checking your resources. A lot of students that we work with, and I think Chiemi, who works with our front desk, a lot of our students can attest to this. They really don't know the landscape of the financial piece, right? They may not even know, okay, how do I do this? It's a morass of regulations and stuff. And that's where professionals like Eduardo come in, right? And on your campus, there's going to be somebody from the study abroad office or the financial aid office who can help you with this and guide you through it. And so don't feel like this is something that you have to figure out alone, because God forbid you make a mistake on something or overlook something. Really use the resources at hand to like Eduardo and positions like his to really help you kind of guide through the process. Thank you, Eduardo. Jackie.
Okay, so sometimes we can feel uncomfortable talking about ourselves, right? And we have this question of like, why me? Why fund me, right? And I want you all to take a moment in this slide to be proud of your experiences, and remember that the work you have done to be where you are today is of value, and it's worth shouting from the rooftops. And I know that sounds really silly, right? But when it comes to the story of you being a transfer student, us transfers, right? We are typically resilient. We are typically multitaskers, right? We know how to juggle work. We know how to juggle being in school full-time, part-time, whatever it might be. Some of us are caretakers. Some of us are first-generation college students, right? So it's really important to share when you are applying to scholarships who you are and the path that you have taken, and that you are a transfer student, right? If there are challenges that you have faced within your effort to study abroad, maybe it's timing, maybe it's funding, Maybe you are a veteran student, maybe you have dependents, and some of these things might impact your opportunities or abilities. Explain them, put it in detail, and share your story. But with that story, right, share how you have adapted, share how you have come out and showcase that you are an excellent student who is not only a student, that you're also doing these great things, and how this opportunity will make a difference for you in your academic experience and in your professional goals, right? So definitely take some time to leverage the strengths that come with you being a transfer student, and how being a transfer student has become a part of your academic identity and journey, right? So these are the things I want you to think about when it comes to applying to those scholarships. Anything anyone wants to add, whether Eduardo, Chiemi, or Jay, anything you want to add here?
I think that's great. I think the one thing that I would add, again, it's and I want to underscore what you said about, not being shy, being brave and saying, hey, I do have stuff to shout from the rooftops. And for those of us, myself included, we might want to show, lessen ourselves or whatever, not want to draw attention to ourselves, but we need money to study abroad, and so you want to be able to kind of translate your experience as a transfer student. Because one thing that I think, and I'm generalizing here, but generally speaking, transfer students, we kind of have it together by the time we're in it, because we're a little bit more mature. We've already gone through another experience and we're transferring. We know what we want. And so, we've got a lot to offer, and we've overcome a lot of challenges. You've mentioned a couple of them, Jackie, like, if you have childcare issues, if you have you're maybe a re-entry student, maybe you're a little older, or maybe you are a veteran, or maybe you have a job that you're working to support yourself and families and whatever. So a lot of different things come at transfer students that sometimes are invisible. So I thank you for speaking to that. Definitely. Chiemi, Eduardo, did you have anything you wanted to add? All right. Well, let me I want to switch gears here, and I'm so excited. I want to thank Chiemi again for agreeing to jump in on this. I was trying to find some really cool panels of transfer students, and it was hard to find, but Chiemi was there for me, and I just wanted to kind of hold space to just kind of hear Chiemi's story a little bit. Chiemi, as she mentioned in her introduction, is a transfer student. She transferred in out of San Francisco City College. She's been working in our office for a couple of years, so she's probably heard it all in terms of transfer students and others who are coming in and having questions and everything else. I just wanted to give Chiemi an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself, Chiemi, and tell us maybe tell us about your study abroad experience that you had, because it was unique as from what I understand. And then maybe some issues that you see transfer students having with regards to wanting to planning to study abroad. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess if there's any questions that anybody has, feel free to ask, because this is kind of flying by the seat of my pants. So as Jay mentioned, I'm a transfer student. I didn't really start looking at transfer or at study abroad until I transferred. I wasn't really sure what college I was going to go to, what my long-term goals were, but I knew I wanted to study abroad. I transferred in fall of 2020, so we were still in the middle of the pandemic. All of my courses were online, and I guess the one thing that I think I would stress for anybody getting started is like what Jay has already said, what Jackie has already said, what Eduardo has said, like use your resources and talk to as many people as possible. I talked to my academic advisors, my college advisors, study abroad a number of times before I even really knew what I was getting into or how to pick a program. And then definitely figuring out what your priorities are, because they're going to be different for everybody, and what you're willing to sacrifice, how strongly you want to go abroad is going to kind of determine what types of programs and opportunities are available for you. So as I mentioned, I am a third-year transfer student. My initial plan was to spend the entire year abroad. So I applied for a UC EAP program. I was going to spend a quarter in Japan studying language, and then I was going to spend a semester in Australia for my linguistics program, doing a global exchange program. So we have UCSD specifically has an agreement with a university called Macquarie University in Australia, which is where I'll be headed in a couple of weeks, if everything goes according to plan. I've also participated in a couple of virtual exchange programs. Both were language programs, summer language programs that were at Japanese universities. Again, I didn't get to go to Japan, but that was kind of one of the compromises that I made just in case I didn't get other opportunities. And then the program that I was supposed to go on in fall did get canceled. So I did not end up getting to go on that program. So I've kind of run the gambit in terms of what programs I've applied for, what programs I've gone on. And then studying abroad in Australia will be me studying abroad during my final term at UCSD. So for those of you who are wondering if that's possible, it definitely is. But I think there's other considerations. So you need to decide whether that's right for you or not. I think other considerations, like just talking to as many people as possible as transfer students, it may feel like there's more barriers than if you have the full 4 years at a UC. I know when I spoke with financial aid advisors, there's kind of some financial aid limit depending on how long you can use your aid. There's credit limits as a transfer student. So figuring out how all of that plays into your plan, I think is very important. So do as much information gathering as possible so that you know what you're getting into and you're not disappointed when you come back and it turns out the credits that you wanted didn't transfer, or you get into the program that you really wanted to and it turns out you don't have as many funds as you initially thought you did, because that is just really disappointing. Is there anything specific that I should address or?
I think, yeah, no, I think that's great. And thank you for kind of taking a very vague, Jimmy, talk about yourself. And actually, I thought you had some great things to say. So thank you, Jimmy. And to your point that you made kind of as you started, we are sliding in towards the final couple of slides. And so we have this opportunity. We have some dynamic people here. Chiami's about to leave. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask her about her experience, or Eduardo about financial aid, or Jackie about just being a transfer student and how to be successful at it while at college, utilize that chat box. I do notice that we have one question, but definitely want to welcome any and all questions that you have before we let you all go today. So thank you, Chiami, and definitely if you think of other things, feel free to just jump in as you can. Exciting, and I feel for students who have been in your position starting in 2020, because our office went through a whole nightmare cycle after cycle after cycle of canceling programs, right? Oh, I'm sorry, we're just, oh, there's another variant. Oh yeah, so we know it's been such a struggle for people in your class, Jimmy, and so I'm super stoked that you can make this happen. What a great way to cap off an experience that started out a little challenging, right? So cheers, definitely. This next slide, I was just kind of brainstorming some FAQs, and Eduardo, I'll have you jump in on the second one, but I wanted to take a moment to kind of, one thing that I thought of when I was thinking about transfer students, and I was thinking about back to my own experience as a transfer student. When I transferred, and I mentioned this a little earlier, I went to a school that did not have a transfer hub or a transfer support center. It was like, oh, you're a transfer, okay. Good for you. Good luck with that, right? And I found myself gravitating towards all the other new students who were in my term that was coming into this new school, they were all freshmen. They were all 2 years younger than me. And so I felt like an old man at age 20, kind of, right? And, 2 years is a big difference for college students sometimes. And sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes a transfer student or an older student, physically older than your traditional age college student, might find themselves going to a program where you might find yourself a bit older than the other participants on the trip. And sometimes that can be challenging. I'll be honest, it was a little challenging for me, not in terms of studying abroad, but just going to this new school as a transfer student. It's like, all right, gosh, these guys haven't done college yet. I've already got 2 years under my belt, right? So it's easy to kind of get disillusioned with that kind of dynamic. But remember, it's important to not isolate yourself. If you feel like the group is going on silly, or you don't fit in with the group because you're over that, or you've been there, done that, try not to isolate yourself. Try to be intentional in getting to know the others. Let them get to know you. You have a lot to offer as a transfer student. And sometimes students might look at you and they might be a little bit anxious, like, oh gosh, I don't know about this person because they seem to have all the answers or whatever, or not. But just don't be afraid, because when you go into a study abroad scenario, and for those of us who have been fortunate to live abroad and study abroad, it is anxiety producing. You're out of your element. It's like you're in a new place, and you might not know the language, and you certainly don't know the culture, and then the only kinds of support system that you can see on the ground is your other cohorts, your partners, the other students in your group. And so you're going to need to rely on them for your own wellness, for your own balance, and you offer support to them. And so you're a team as a cohort wherever you end up studying abroad. So don't forget that, even though the age difference might be a bit different. So not to say that that's going to happen to you, but if it does happen, as a older gentleman, I can relate to that sometimes. It's like, oh, really? I think I'm the oldest guy in this room. Oh my gosh. So just keep that in mind. And if there's other things too, that you can think of in terms of, my identity as a transfer student, or as a veteran, or as an older student, or as a student with dependents or children, or whatever it might be, those things, important to own those as part of your identity, and to get support from students, other students in your group. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Eduardo, did you want to speak to the next bullet?
Yeah, so another question that's frequently asked is, what do I need to do to make sure I get the most amount of financial aid for my program abroad? And the main thing is to really just submit your FAFSA or California DREAM Act on time. The priority deadline at most schools is March 2nd. So as long as you do that, you'll be guaranteed to get the maximum eligibility. And also, if you have any holes or any outstanding documents, try to do those early, really early, just so there's not any issues by the time you want to study abroad.
Thank you. Good point. Good point. Chimmy, Jackie, anything else to add to FAQs? I think we've thrown down some good info here. Awesome. So this next slide is questions and discussion, and so we're kind of at the end here. I think that we've been able to go through some great points, give you all some food for thought. I wanted to address a couple questions that I see in the chat here. One is from, this is a direct message, basically a first-year transfer student who's in engineering. I mentioned I was an advisor for engineering, and I work with a lot of engineering students. And what this person says is, from what they've heard, it is hard for engineering students to find courses abroad that are transferable. And so, a lot of the work that I do with engineering students is finding courses. That is the juice of the work, right? If you can find courses, and like I said, if you can find technical electives or breadth electives, courses that'll kind of be a little bit easier to fulfill, that's where you want to go. And just naturally, the way that academic plans run, a lot of those courses come up your junior year, later on in your academics. And so that's a natural time for students to study abroad. And so if you're a transfer student, and you all should be, right, because you're here, you likely don't have very many GEs left, if any at all. And so you're going to be focusing primarily, if not exclusively, on courses for your major or for a minor or whatnot. And so I can tell you just from my experience as an engineering advisor, we do have programs that are specifically designed for engineering students. You know, we have schools that have strong engineering portfolios. EAP offers a number of them. We have programs that offer internships that are engineering focused. And we have a lot of different engineering opportunities that leave at both during the year as well as summer being probably the most popular time for engineering students, especially just because you don't have to kind of mess with your coursework during the year. And so, you know, I think it's important for this student who's asking the question, who's an engineering student, but for each and every one of you, if you're serious about studying abroad and you're a transfer student and this is your first of 2 years at your school or whatever, lay down, if you haven't already, lay down your entire flow chart of all your courses that you think you're going to take and when you think you're going to take them. Should be meeting with your advisor to talk through that process. You want to give yourself a picture. When is the best time? Obviously, this summer is a popular option. Maybe the following summer, you know, you might walk and do commencement and then study abroad. Whatever your plan is, it's important to know your framework. It's important to know the ground beneath you as you step towards the finish line, so that you're not surprised, right? And so that's something to consider, so that you know, okay, I've got 3 gen eds left, or I've got some college requirements, or I'm only looking at my major stuff. Summer, you only have to do a couple courses typically for a summer program, versus during the year, you have to choose more courses. So I'm not advocating summer or year as better or worse. I'm just saying that there are options for you in terms of courses and choosing the best time to go and all of that good stuff. A little quick note too. You're welcome. Just got a thank you note from that student. Thank you. A quick note. There are some students who are transfer students who are reentry students who maybe stepped away for a while, and they might have dependents. And every once in a while, it's not too often, but every once in a while, our office does get students with dependents or children asking, I got a kid, you know, how can I make study abroad work with that? Or can I take my child, or whatever the case might be? And so don't think that that's a foreign question to us. If you do have a dependent, come and talk to us anyway, you know, say, hey, I got a dependent, or I got these issues or challenges, and we might be able to accommodate that or to speak to that and help you through whatever barriers you're thinking about. So just, you know, just remember that as well. Our website on our Study Abroad UC San Diego page does have a transfer support page with some of these questions or scenarios. I kind of peeked around the other UC campuses, and many of your campuses also have a similar type of page that's kind of a supporting transfer students in studying abroad. So check out your local study abroad office website, particularly any information that might relate about transfer students and studying abroad. I see this question. I'm going to throw it out to my colleagues, maybe Eduardo, maybe you can handle it. For UC EAP scholarship applications, can we apply to it after we turn in our program application, or do we need to wait until we know if we got accepted for the program? Eduardo, did you want to give that a shot? Yeah,
so you can apply as soon as you turn in your application. Especially, that's what we recommended earlier, the better. So yeah, the answer to that is yes.
Word. Thank you. I thought so, but I didn't want to say it because I may have been wrong. No, definitely. Yeah. You know, the answer is always no until you ask, right? And so apply to everything. It's like spaghetti, right? Throw it all up against the wall and see what sticks, right? And I'm always encouraging students to apply. Our campus, speaking of scholarships, our campus actually offers scholarship writing workshops, and they're going on right now because if you remember Eduardo's comments about the scholarship open period, it's open now, right? Students are applying to their scholarship applications now. And so we're trying to help our students as much as possible with their writing and making their essay writing as tight as possible. So you should have the similar service on your campus. I encourage you to check it out. We have a writing hub on our campus. I'm sure you all have writing hubs on your campus. Try to get as many different eyes on your piece of writing for your scholarship essay as you can. And that way you'll tighten up your writing, even more and make yourself even more competitive. So definitely keep that in mind. To the question about when are the deadlines for scholarships and programs, there are so many scholarships, right? It's impossible to say, particularly knowing that we have representatives or attendees in the room from all different campuses. The answer to that is I would suggest you reach out to your actual study abroad office and look when the scholarship deadline is. For our campus, our scholarship cycle just opened. We're going to run ours, I believe, until March 1st, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, colleagues, but it'll be open until March. We also have national scholarships that you should be checking out. If you have not heard of the Gilman Scholarship, you should apply to the Gilman because they give a lot of money. It's a national scholarship. You do have to be a US citizen, but if you are, you should apply to it, and you should talk about your challenges and successes coming to where you are as a transfer student to kind of give a nod to Jackie's earlier comments about selling yourself as a student. So definitely keep your eyes out. We have a database on our study abroad website to show all of the different scholarships, and it's a pretty significant database. And so there's a lot of scholarships. They're all different. They all have different requirements and different deadlines, and so it's worth your time to look into scholarships and apply to as many as you can. Definitely want to underscore that as much as I can, just because it is an important element to it. No one should be applying to study abroad without applying to scholarships, in my opinion. I don't care how much money you got, there's these pools of money, and some of these pools tell us, by the way, sometimes they find it hard to give out the money because not enough people apply to them because, I never get scholarships. I'm shocked at how many times I've heard that from students. So give it a shot, apply to as many scholarships as you can, and use your office, study abroad office on campus to help guide you. Other questions that anyone might have? Time check, we're at 5:50, 5:49, so perfect timing. Any final questions before we sign off and have you all jump on your study abroad websites and start researching and applying to programs? All right, Jesse, you have a question. Go for it.
Hi there. Here, let me turn on my video so it's a bit more formal. Hello.
Hello.
I am an English major here at UCI, and I was just wondering if there were any, because I know we talked about like other majors and other programs, but English majors, I hear it's kind of like difficult sometimes to kind of get the right courses in when it comes to your degree, because as a transfer student, something that I've constantly heard trying to study abroad is we're only given so many quarters in the UC system. Right. So if I were to get accepted into a program, but they didn't have the correct classes for me, then I'd kind of be stuck. So like, how do I avoid that?
Have you talked to your advisor in your major by chance, in your literature?
I have. I hear different things. Like there was another student that was an English major that applied to study abroad in Italy, which sounds amazing. Yeah. But then I was told that I couldn't because I need an X amount of senior credits at the university itself. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like why I'm at a dead end at this point, because I would genuinely love to study in London. I am an English major. Like I feel like it would be a crime if I didn't study there. Totally. If I had the opportunity to. Right. So that's definitely something that I want to do. It just sounds like it's kind of a bit of a challenge, at least here. And a few of my peers have also expressed that being a transfer student, it's not as easy trying to study abroad as it is like a first or a second year. So like sure. Any sort of guidance or like information, I would greatly appreciate.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Jesse. And yeah, you're right. It's tougher for transfers. I'm not gonna lie. You have a window of 2 years versus a freshman who potentially has 4 or 5 years, right? So you do have to be quick on your plans with regards to wanting to fulfill it. As to your question about English majors at UC Irvine, it's so hard because every major is different. Even on our campus at UC San Diego, I've been working with academic integration. I know that some majors are like, yeah, you want to study abroad, go for it. Study abroad as long as you want. Bye, just come back, at some point. Other majors are like, yeah, you actually can only take 3 credits, or you can only do a class abroad or something. It varies wildly. And I wish I could say that every single department is super supportive of study abroad and can make it happen and open it up, but it's sometimes not the case. And so, I guess my advice to you, Jesse, is, and you've already talked to advisors, is continue kind of exploring with your advising teams, your support system, the UC Irvine Study Abroad Office, the Department of English, undergraduate advising office. Just go in there and say, look, this is a dream of mine. This is something I really want to do, but I'm finding it hard to be able to identify courses. You're probably going to want to consider a summer, just because you only have to take so many courses versus more courses for a whole year, right? Or I'm sorry, a whole quarter worth. And so maybe a summer might be a little easier because you only have to find 2 courses versus 4, for instance. I remember actually when we started to discuss this session, Jackie had an emailed exchange saying, I think I'm paraphrasing your question, Jackie, it was like, would it be worth it, to do an extra quarter or to add on a minor and make time longer at university just to study abroad? And that's a good question, and it's a valid question. And I don't know the answer. I would say as a student, no. Did I do your question right, Jackie? Did I do it?
Yeah, no, you totally did, Jay. And I do want to say one thing to all of those who are still in the room with us today. I've worked with transfer students for a lot of years now. And when students come back from study abroad, I have never heard a student say, what a waste of time and money. I have never heard that ever in my life. So, when you have those doubtful thoughts and you're like, should I, shouldn't I? Remember, this opportunity can be a life changer for you, and so self-doubt is big, but if you can make it happen, it's 100% worth it. I just want to throw it out into the universe.
Yes.
Said as someone who did not take advantage of the opportunity and regret it, right? Like that's where I'm coming from. So Chiemi, I'm jealous of you. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can also jump in. So I did decide to stay the extra year specifically in the hopes that I would be able to study abroad for the entire year. It didn't totally end up working out as planned, but that is something that I discussed with my major advisors, with my college advisors, and with study abroad. And maybe some things that you can address with your advisors specifically are UCSD does also have the senior residency requirement, or whatever it's called. That might not be specifically what it's called, but it sounds like UCI has the same thing. When I spoke with my major advisors, they did tell me that it is possible to waive that residency, especially for a program like transfer or like study abroad. So I would definitely bring up that as an option to see if that's an option for you with your advisors. And then in terms of looking for coursework, I don't sugarcoat it for, whether you're a first year, second year, third year, fourth year, transfer student, whatever. My experience is that major departments tend to be pretty unhelpful with finding courses that are good for you studying abroad. And so a lot of students come to study abroad office and we're like, we can only help you so far. So the legwork is going to be mostly you, to be honest. But what you can do, and what I think people tend to have a little bit more success doing, is speak with your study abroad office, speak with your major So with your major advising, you want to ask them, what are the courses that they would allow you to take abroad. Like Jay was saying, some courses are restricted. You have to take them at a UC. So see what your wiggle room is there, and then bring that to a study abroad advisor and say, these are the types of courses that I'm looking for. I know I want to study abroad in the UK, in London. Being able to narrow down what you want is going to make it significantly easier for a study abroad advisor to find programs that work for you. And then you can explore those programs and find the best one that's for you. So you can look through the courses that you received from your major advising, like, okay, these are the courses that I can take abroad. Are there courses at this program that I think are equivalent? And you can do that by reading course descriptions, looking at syllabi. And then you bring that back to your major advisor and tell them, these are the specific courses that I'm looking at. These are what requirements I'm hoping that they will fulfill. And it's not going to be 100% because maybe those courses are not offered at the time that you're looking at. Maybe the syllabi changes slightly from year to year, but you're going to have a much higher probability of one, getting those courses transferred back, and two, getting like a concrete answer out of your major department versus being like, hey, can you tell me what courses I could take abroad? Because then they're just going to send you to the study abroad office, and study abroad is going to be like, well, you kind of have to talk to your major advisor about that. And then people end up running back and forth. So do the legwork on your own and kind of almost like present it to your advisors and be like, this is what I want to do. I've thought it through. I've, run the calculations, whatever. And I think the conversation tends to be more productive, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Thank you so much. That brings me to my final question, and thank you for all of your input. I greatly appreciate it. So I am studying Italian as well, and that's like 6 courses worth of work. And I was told that possibly that wouldn't be offered. So like in the UK. So would that just be like a more broad question for like an advisor, or like how do you get around that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's something you're going to want to talk to the advising office at Irvine, just to see, well, what do they have? Because I know UK has a ton of options, and you're probably going to be able to find Italian, being taught at, school somewhere in the UK. And there's so many schools in the UK, right? But it's going to take some research definitely on your end. So I assume you've been to the office yet, and definitely continue. Let them know who you are, and hopefully they can help you out. If you're definitely wanting to go to the UK, that's a good choice, because as countries go, Scotland and England combined, you're going to have a lot of choices to choose from. And thank you, Chiemi, for mentioning the senior residence requirement, because it's such an important rule at UC. I actually I taped it to my bulletin board next to my office, in my office, because I get so many seniors who are asking me this. So the rule is, you're supposed to take like 35 of the last 45 units of your time at UC at your home campus. But as Chiemi said, study abroad is an exception to that rule. And so sometimes you might get an advisor who may not know that. And so definitely, come armed with that factoid if you want to study abroad as a senior, and then hopefully everyone can kind of get that information and work on the same page. Thank you for those questions, though. That was amazing.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, guys. And that was a fact that I didn't know. No one told me that. So thank you so much for telling me. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. And we are at time. And so I want to thank my panelists. I want to thank all of our attendees. I learned a lot. I thank you all. And have a great rest of your evening. Peace.